I said I would play the DS on the podcast, so I have to at least at some point in the episode.
If you guys are good, I'm good. So
okay, can we clap in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Guys, welcome back to another episode of Off the Clock,
The soon-to-be
number one podcast
in the world.
On the planet. In the universe.
Ever. Galaxy.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah. We have big dreams and aspirations with this podcast. Yeah.
Well,
probably too big, but
maybe just a little bit. Just a little bit.
I think we should address the elephant in the room of who our guest is today.
Oh, yes.
This is RD from our rival podcast, Off the Stage. Just kidding.
I like that. That's good.
Quick side question. Is there like any competition between Offstage and Life Reframed? You guys go back and forth?
No competition.
Okay.
I mean, we're far superior.
I think that's fair.
You can't call it competition.
I think that's fair.
I mean, it's like, Tennessee and who are they? Eastern Kentucky. It's just, no, not at all. The beauty of those run much more frequently and then Open Door. Each one, as you guys know, and this podcast is actually another kind of avenue. There's some similarity, but they all have their own area. Like there's enough that's like distinct that you're not like, this is the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Like it is amazing that we have that multiple podcasts, but we do because it's not three of the exact same.
Yeah.
But there's obviously some crossover. But Offstage was the original one that launched the podcast movement, if you will.
Fellowship.
About, I don't know, maybe it's been 3-4 years now. We've done 5-6 seasons. Ours are not as long as your guys. We do a little shorter seasons.
I feel like
you
we're
guys
going to correct that mistake.
Was your first season longer, though?
It was. Back when we we were younger then, Grant. We were younger men. That's before COVID. So it might as well have been 30 years ago at this point.
Back before the dark ages.
Yes, back before a different time. So yes, we started, and I think we've done, I don't even know how many total we've done now, maybe 70, 80 episodes overall, I think.
Wow.
So,
have y'all talked about what you're going to do for like 100th episode?
I honestly, we probably wouldn't even know. Sam Scott would probably have to tell us when the 100th episode is because we would blaze right past it.
Yeah.
That's just not quite our vibe.
Yeah.
Man.
Anyway, so yes, happy to be here.
Dude, so
Love
glad
the pod.
that you're here.
Off the clock.
It.
That's awesome.
Enjoy it.
Aidan, do you want to ask your
we'll do our
opening question?
Trademark.
We have a trademark question for any guest on the podcast.
Oh, wonderful.
So
We'll do our trademark kind of question. So
Trademark.
First of all, just kind of introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and your kind of position here at Fellowship.
Yes. I'm RD McClenagan, and I am 36 years old, and I'm married to Emily for 11 years now.
That's
and
awesome.
Let's go.
I have three. Thank you. I have 3 kids, all girls. Maisie, Camille, who are twins, and then who are 8, almost 9, and then Leela, who's 3, almost 4. And so it is wonderful, good times. And I have been here at Fellowship now for 6 years, and have been in full-time ministry for 11 years. Was up in Wisconsin. Did I lose something?
I have no idea. I think I'm fine.
Is everything back?
You good?
Yeah.
I can't hear.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
really?
Yeah.
My apologies, everybody.
We may need to invest in a whatever that is. A new one of those.
in a thing.
When we open that
invest
off the clock bank
In a new
account,
thing.
That thing was $12 on Amazon.
Well, probably.
there we go.
We could do that maybe for Christmas, guys. That could be a Christmas gift.
that can be our first
That
purchase
will
when we open
be.
the Patreon.
That will be it.
The Patreon.
Okay, so how do you guys do it? Should I keep going? Should I start over? I don't know
No,
how
just
you
keep
wanna-
going.
Yeah,
You're good.
just-
You guys good?
Yeah.
We'll fix it.
You
in
don't
post.
care. I
We
love
don't.
it. I love it. There are no rules off the clock. That's amazing.
There are no rules.
So I was 5 years in Wisconsin and then 6 years here. And I was the young adult pastor and then served on the teaching team. And now I lead the adult ministry team, which covers most things at Fellowship besides kids and students and mobilization, and serve on the teaching team as well. And love it, and love Fellowship, and also get to do off stage and a few other things here and there. So that's enough. You can ask more questions if you like.
Yeah,
there probably will be more, but that's awesome.
That's awesome. Let's go. Okay. So number one question is just tell us a little bit about yourself, and like for our listeners, where are you from?
Yeah.
Background, like whatever you feel is,
and like
you want to tell people.
Like, what's your journey, I guess, in your faith and like to here? I think it's kind of what we're getting at more than anything, because we asked JC kind of a similar question. I think Steven too, and just like like how did you end up kind of where you are in life?
Mm-hmm.
Just a small general question.
Yes, that's a very small question. I will answer.
Yes or no?
Yeah.
I was born, as most people are, down in Mobile, Alabama, and grew up with mom and dad and younger brother, and grew up in the church, in the Episcopal church, and really enjoyed it. I'm a big liturgy guy. Love liturgy. Love what they call like high church stuff, where you have hymns and have it more formal. I do miss that about Fellowship, but just being in an evangelical church, one of the things I do miss is some of that. Like, I try and get to an Episcopal service or an Anglican service when I can, just because I enjoy it so much. It's just richer. It's deeper.
Yeah.
And so I grew up, even as a young boy. I don't know a ton of young kids that love that, but I really just thought it was great. And came to faith when I was genuinely a younger kid. Went through the Holy Spirit, obviously, but through the ministry of really my mom, and then grew up in the church. We moved from Alabama to Maryville, Tennessee when I was sixth grade, and my dad's job. And then started going to a Baptist church in Maryville. That's a big First Baptist Maryville. Shift. It was a big shift, and it was so different. But my parents, like, this just is the church. We feel like they'd met the new pastor of the church kind of actually out and about, and just felt like this is where we want to go. So we started going there. Oh, cool. I got involved in the youth group, kind of classic Baptist youth group, but it was great. And my faith kind of grew from there, and it was 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th, 11th, 12th, all up for Baptist Maryville. Did mission trips, centrifuge, all the stuff. And I really had a genuine growing faith in the Lord, and, was kind of became, I guess, one of the leaders of the youth group there. And it wasn't super big, maybe 30 people. But it was great. Like, I really loved it, and felt like my faith became a bit more my own, but not like it would later on.
Sure.
But always enjoyed church, just like church, like sermons and all of that. And so then went to college, and it was when I really began to walk through if you listen to some of Offstage, I've shared some of this before, took a intro to biblical lit class my freshman year of college, and it just kind of took me down a path of questioning the Bible, questioning the scriptures, because my professor, who actually ironically was an Episcopal priest, was very much of, like a lot of people experience in college, very skeptical of the what I grew up believing about the Bible, that it was the Word of God, that it was true, that it was inerrant, and just really went after that. And I remember thinking, wow, I've never even heard anything like this before, but it does actually sound pretty convincing, and I'm more intellectual, kind of love to read, love to think, and so it really piqued my interest. And I was like, this is fascinating. Like, there are other creation myths that are very much like the creation myth of Genesis 1 and 2 that actually predate the writing of the Genesis 1 and 2. And I was like, how is that possible? How this is actually impossible, but it clearly is. And just walking through the Old Testament and kind of, it was definitely biased, as everything is. Everyone has a point of view. Sure. But I remember it was so unsettling to me. And I know it was for my parents, because they were like, what's going on? And so I quit going to church, which is also more just a product of, I just didn't want to wake up, on Sunday mornings at college. But it was also like, I don't know why I'd go if I'm really kind of questioning my faith. So I kind of got to a place where I believed in a God, but not as he was revealed in Scripture, because I didn't think the Bible was reliable because of what I was learning in my class. And I took another class that spring semester. So I just then began kind of a journey. I felt a little bit of a call to pastoral ministry the end of high school, but I kind of put that on hold or just put it away, honestly, because I'm like, well, I'm not going to do that now. And I really love political science, which ended up being my major. Love politics, more behind the scenes, not like running for office, but like policy.
Yeah. Vote for RD.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it is.
McClenagan, 2024.
I did run for a class president my freshman year at Furman.
Did you win?
And no, I did not. I didn't win president, but I ran. I won vice president. So I ran it again. Right when I was running for that, it was when George Bush was in office, and one of his signature bills was "Leave no child behind," and so my catchphrase was "Leave no freshman behind," and I just like that was my thing. I will not leave you behind. I'm not sure like where they were being left behind too, but it was just like my thing, and it wasn't good enough for president. I came in second for that, but then I won the vice president, and
but you got all that campaign.
Yeah,
experience.
I did.
Yeah.
So it was very very fun. But so I kind of liked that, and I enjoyed that. But I actually liked more of like being on the council at Furman and like policy stuff. And I was like, I think now the ministry's out, I want to do that. It was two things, honestly. It was political science or it was film. Because I love film. And
you and I are going to click so well.
So I honestly then looked at two grad schools. One grad school for film, so like grad school at USC for their film studies program, because like that's what I want to do. Because I also grew up in a family that loved movies and great cinema. We didn't do board games. We did movies. That's what we did. And I love that. And so I just always was like, man, that would be normal people do that. Like people at some point are like, Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese, they were like 18 one time.
Yeah.
Like,
Tarantino.
Tarantino. You aren't born to like, it's like, so I was like, maybe now that, so once ministry went on, I was like, things that I grew up kind of loving, film and then political science kind of behind the scenes. And so I went down that path pretty hard, both of those paths. And then I read through, all that to say, I started reading through other kind of religious traditions to have that college experience of like, I'm going to read about Buddhism and Hinduism and Confucianism and Islam more as like this is my journey of faith, which feels very college-y, very much like it was way before anything like deconstruction existed like it did now. And I wouldn't say that's what I did as much as just I was exploring things I never read about growing up in a more, I didn't even know non-Christians outside of a couple people until I went to college. It was very much a different world. So I came back around to read the Bible again, but more from a detached position. Right. Just more of like, I'm going to complete my journey over about a year and a half by coming to the biblical text with this just view of it as literature. And then I can say I kind of went around the world, in 18 months. And so I read through the Old Testament again, and this is probably into the beginning of my junior year of college. And reading it, after reading these other texts and learning about other scriptures or other religious scriptures, was when I just saw the Bible in such a different way. Mm-hmm. And it was like, this is not like anything else that I've read. And I still had a lot of questions and still do about the Bible. But you get through especially with Moses, his journey, the prophets. I had a real challenge with suffering in the Bible. And I just would read through the text and I'd be like, wow, so do the prophets. Like they seem to have challenges with suffering because they ask God about it. Like, it's like, what on earth, God? And that doesn't exist in any other religious text, questions like that, the honesty like that. And so it's so just struck me. I was like, wow. I remember thinking if God is so okay with putting these questions in his book, that's a different type of God than I thought he was. He just embraces it, like question after question. And even more than that, it's sometimes it's way more than even questions. It's flat out like, we disagree, or like, you're not keeping your word. And then you get to the person of Jesus, and even more different than anybody else, obviously, and just the way he is. And so I came back to faith in a genuine, really recovered it kind of going into junior year. It's when I kind of found myself with C.S. Lewis, who I knew about through Narnia, but didn't know about him really any other way of his writing.
Yeah.
He's always been popular, but he's really had a lot of growth probably over the last 10, 15 years in terms of for younger people than even he did. Now that's been about 20 years now. But read him, read Keller, read some other kind of stuff like that, Tim Keller. So anyway, I came back to faith in a genuine way, and really my heart grew in love for the Lord after my mind was really grown in it. And then I applied for seminary because I felt like it just became clear to me being in pastoral ministry was kind of God brought me back to that. And so I put political science and film, like actually applying on hold, and I applied for seminary and got in. And then I've been doing that path now for 15, 16 years.
Wow.
So that is a long story of my faith, is that it's one that still has doubts. There's still things that I wonder about when it comes to just the Bible, how we got it, how we came to have it. But I have such a richer faith and a deeper faith and a compassion for people that doubt or walk through these journeys because I've been there. And I think to some level, everyone should. Yeah. And I'm thankful that I did, even though I know, particularly my parents and others, I think it terrified them. And as a parent now, I can imagine like, oh boy, like I hope this journey works out in one way, not the other. And it doesn't for everybody, but for me, it's made my faith more real and more tangible, less kind of inherited from my parents, less vanilla, less like, oh, of course the Bible is true because the Bible is true. It's like, well, that's not why it's true, but anyway, things like that. So I'm very thankful. Yeah. I think it helps a lot of my preaching and pastoral ministry.
What's some advice or like something that you would give
I was hoping
to somebody going like in the age range, I guess that we are, like going out of high school and then first year of college?
Like you're saying all this stuff about your college journey, and I'm like, this is me. Like,
Wait a second.
Yeah, like I'm that age, so
this is me. Yeah. Well, I would say there's a lot of I would say this may seem like you are a pastor, right? I would say there's a lot of great arguments about why the Bible is unreliable. Now, they're not convincing to me, but I think sometimes if a parent or a pastor is like, this is so stupid, like these people are insane, like these are the dumbest arguments, that then when you read them sometimes you're like, well, they're not that dumb. So like it's been put off as like this, like these are just, this is Satan's work, you know, this is like whatever it may be. Then when you open yourself up to it, you just feel like it's not what I thought it was. Like it's actually, there's some reasons to it. But if you have a more nuanced view of it, I think that it's like, hey, there's some good arguments out there. And there are going to be things that you hear that may make you kind of look left or look right. That's okay. But have other resources that are really, really strong, great resources. And there's so many more now, both online, from YouTube to great books, and that have counter arguments to anything like that. So I think that there clearly, if Christianity is in a lot of ways a very mysterious faith that has a lot of mystery in it, then there's going to be a lot of different viewpoints on it. And I think some are stronger than others. And there clearly is a very orthodox way to read the Bible and what the Bible says. I believe that, of course. There are things you have to believe that make you a Christian. There are, or an Orthodox Christian at least. But I think to not be afraid of walking down a journey of questioning God or questioning the Bible or kind of wrestling with your faith. I mean, you know, the people of Israel, Jacob, who actually wrestles with God in Genesis 32, maybe before, somewhere in there. God renames him Israel. You know, Israel. It literally means one who wrestles with God. And so the people of Israel, who are God's people in the Old Testament, and the genesis of their name is wrestlers, those who struggle with God. And so I think that's such a good thing to think about as normal, that questioning and doubting, provided that you don't become cynical or you don't become intellectually lazy or just check out, or find a very popular atheist and just subscribe to everything he or she says. Yeah. Like, that's lazy. That is not, don't do that. Like, you've got to be able to think about these things well. And I think I would say that, and just have compassion both for yourself and for other people that are going on a journey, and not to be so harsh and like, how can you possibly, don't you love Jesus? Like, how can you possibly even? Yeah. And it's like, well, I'm on a journey of discovering, what it means, but do it with wisdom, and don't just do it on your own. That's not probably the wisest thing to do.
I can remember at beach camp, I think it was this past summer, I don't know if it was me having a conversation with Zach or if it was a bunch of us, but I remember him saying they'd had a sermon one morning, just kind of unpacking some of the stuff and some of the arguments that had been made against the Bible and why it's true and why they're wrong. And Zach was kind of elaborating on it with us and just being like, you're going to have professors that are going to challenge this and are going to have some really compelling arguments. Yeah. And that's okay. But just know that they're not telling, like, there's another half of the story.
Yes, there is. There is. And there's some things that will only come through, like, intellectual pursuit can get you a long way. It can. And it's good to go down that path. Apologetics work is important work. It really helped me in so many ways. But there also is, at some level, there's revelation from the Holy Spirit. And it's supernatural. And that is from the Lord. And so I'm a huge believer in reading widely and having a strong faith intellectually. But at some point, that hits a ceiling, and God has to break through in some ways. And that's to have prayer be a part of it for other people in your life, for yourself, is like, God, reveal to me things that only you can. And insight is great, and arguments are great, and these things are great, but none of those can prove God. None of those can make you believe. That comes from the Holy Spirit. He's the one who gives you the eyes to see that. And so to pray for that is so wise. And God does that by his grace. But then at the same time, I would say there's other ways that your faith can be strengthened as you grow more deeply into it. And always wrestling with the Bible, coming back to the Bible, what it says. So much of it is so unbelievable that it has to be true. You would not put it in there if it was not true. Amen. And I think that's one thing that's like, you cannot make this thing up unless it was actually true. It's too incredible. And that has always continued to strengthen my faith, is that every other religion that's been created has a pretty set way that it's followed. These rules, climb this mountain, get to the top. Here, it makes sense somewhat, and Christianity is not like that at all.
Yeah, and I think that what you said about how in Christianity you see questioning and like people throughout the Bible, especially in the Old Testament with the Israelites, with all those prophets, like questioning God, questioning what he does. You see with Peter in the New Testament over and over and over again.
You do.
And I just think that's something I hadn't thought about before. Like that is a difference between the Bible, between like Christianity and so many other things. So that's really good. I hadn't thought about that.
I feel like the biggest thing for me too, and I've talked about this before just with other people, that the Bible doesn't stray away from humanity and like the reality of humanity. I always think of like David's sin that he struggled with. Like the Bible doesn't pull any punches there, or like any of the kings or any of the prophets, or like what the judges struggle with. Like, I mean, Samson was a terrible person, and I feel like
for the most part,
any other religion would like frame him as like some Herculean just demigod, someone who doesn't make any mistakes, but the Bible doesn't pull any punches there. So I just think that
that's
like
good.
There's just a reality there that I haven't seen anywhere else.
No,
so
there's not one. I think that's so good, and it's something that I hope most people get as they grow in their faith. They're a part of a church that teaches that the Bible is not about heroes and heroines. It is about Jesus, and it's about God. It's about the story of God's people. And it's about the story of people that God uses who are not just fallible, but sinful. And there are no people that there are ways in which God says, hey, there are things to emulate in these people. There's things to model after them, but to a certain, like up to a certain level. And then there's only one person who were truly supposed to model. But we did an episode of Offstage called "The Bible is for Real Life," and just talking about the text of the Bible and the narratives and the stories of the people. That it's not, the Bible could have been the 10 Commandments only, or it could have been doctrine only. It could have been a couple epistles of just here's the law. It could have just been Leviticus. But it's not. I mean, most of the Bible is narrative. Most of the Bible is story. Most of the Bible is it is a narrative. It is a story of, it's really, like Star Wars. It is the story of one family. It's this huge universe of 1,000 things. But at the end of it, when you boil it down, it's a story of one family. That's what the Bible's about. And I am just always, as someone that loves film and loves story, I always love that the Bible is not these religious kind of to-dos. Like, hey, there's 25 things. If you're going to be a Christian, there are 25 things that God came down at one point and just revealed on a mountaintop. It's like, no, it's not that way. It's in the beginning, God created this world. He created a world for people to inhabit. And the story of the Bible is a story about God and God's people. And it's about a garden, and it will be about a garden. And it's about a family in the middle. And to me, it's not superfluous. It's not that. It is. It's like, get rid of that. Let's just get to the meat. And I think, no, the meat is the story. The meat is Abraham's journey. It's Moses' journey. It's Ruth. It's the prophet's journey. And it is Paul's story. And it's Jesus. Like, the Gospels are these narratives of the life of Jesus. Even there, it's not just the bullet points.
Right.
And even in Paul, like reading Paul, he's the most like, here's some of the staccato, if you will, but he is still his story, which is incredible. And he's in this world of building up these churches that are anchored in the story of what God is doing. It's not just about, hey, here's the doctrine for the people of Corinth. Like, no, there's the true story of the world. And the church is here to tell that story of God being in the world and creating people to live in a different story, an alternative story. And it's made up of people that have their own stories, that have their lives and their pains and their sufferings and their brokenness, and their stories matter to God. And it's part of his story. And I am just, as you can hear from me talking about it, it's one of those things that can be assumed or it can be passed over. But it's just such a beautiful thing that I often, when I hold the Bible, I'm like, it's one story about a family that God is redeeming for his glory. And so then every time I open up the Bible, I'm like, what part of the story and what am I learning about this great story today when I read about this? Not just like for my personal devotion. That's such a small thing, though it's not unimportant. But it's like the Bible's about God and who he is, and invited me into that story. And so then whether you're in Exodus or you're in Ruth or you're in Jeremiah or you're in Jude, it's like, what part of the story is this showing me? And that has always made the scripture reading much more life-giving for me and much more energizing for me and much more fascinating for me. Like, how does Isaiah connect to Genesis and Exodus and also look forward to new creation? And what are the things that is hinted at here and foreshadowed? And anyway, I could go down that trail a while, but it's different than like, what are the 3 things that you just got out of that reading? It's like, that is not the point. That is not the point. That's not why the Bible was written, just for your personal devotional time. That's a piece of it, but it's so much bigger and more glorious and more wonderful than that. And I think that could help a lot of people in their faith journey, is to be like, it's bigger and greater and grander than just you. And the Bible is that story. So anyway, sorry. No, I will stop there.
No,
that's awesome.
Please do not apologize.
Sometimes you just feel free to be like, we have more questions. But yeah, there you go. No, feel free to take that where you want.
No, that's awesome. I feel like, too, if like the Bible shows that humanity and that realism, and if it is about one family, like it feels like you can also be a part of that family.
Yes.
Because you're a broken person.
That's
like
right.
I'm a broken person. So if I'm reading a book about God working through broken people, well, then God can work through me, right?
That's right. So right.
So
yes. Yeah. There's hope for me.
There's hope for
there's hope for
all of us,
there
guys.
is. There's hope for everybody in the Bible. Like in the genealogies, of Matthew and Luke, it is in that is the story that Matthew and Luke were trying to say. We often just be like, what on earth? But in every name is just this long foretold story of the birth of Jesus that comes through a family. He doesn't just drop out of thin air. Like, he is born from two parents in a certain time in history and with a certain government ruling over him. Like, there's actually such flesh and blood to it. And the people that are in this family, I've said before in preaching about it, the people that Jesus came from are the people that he came for. So these just people in his family tree are absolutely jacked up, like all of our family trees.
Yeah.
But he comes to redeem the family tree. And like you said, Grant, to invite us to be into it. Pause. And say there's space for you here.
So sorry. I think the camera just cut out.
Oh.
I don't know why I did that. Let me go check it real
How
quick.
would you even know that?
Because it made a noise.
That was a noise.
Oh, no. Okay. I'll be right back.
You're good.
I'm sorry.
That is amazing. You were like...
Grant gets a tingle.
That is like... That's like a sixth sense right there.
He got the spidey sense for the camera.
I mean, amazing.
That is impressive.
I'm glad you caught that. That would have been a bummer.
Yeah.
A real bummer.
Oh, man. I thought that was your computer at first, Aidan.
My computer's chilling.
No, I know. I'm just saying I thought it was your computer at first.
You guys, very impressed. I'm very impressed.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're just
Back?
We're just going to keep rolling. I don't know why.
It's plugged in?
Yeah. It's got full battery.
All right.
Huh.
All right.
That's so funny.
We're just going to keep rolling then.
Cool.
Hey, keep rolling, baby.
Here, cool.
I love it.
Clap. All right, we're back.
Sorry, guys. Our camera shut off randomly.
Yeah, you never know, guys. It's just...
We got lots of B-roll for this episode
It's,
now.
it's always one thing, right?
It is. If it's not one thing, it's another thing. You know?
Gotta have that 24 episode first season to work out all the kinks.
You
and
do.
everything.
Oh, man.
Change venues 15 times.
Oh, yeah,
all
that's
that good
true.
stuff.
We have recorded in quite a few areas, yeah.
You guys are keeping on the road, maybe, you know?
On the
Every office
off the clock on
in
the road.
800 we've recorded.
Almost everyone, yeah.
Off the clock on the road. I like that.
We should get a van and just do like those TikTok
pop up.
That's what
bloggers that'll just like...
That's what the Patreon is.
Yes. And we just record
just pop up
podcasts
and
in
do
random
that. I love
places
that.
in a van.
That's so great.
Oh, man.
There it is. That's how we go
You're
viral,
good.
guys. I figured
it's
it
gonna
out.
happen. In faith, we declare it.
You heard it here
Lord.
first,
You heard
folks.
it here first. By season 9, you're going to be like,
By
you're
season
gonna be
9.
there. Yep. And you guys are like young dads. You're like, we're still doing off the clock.
Dude, could you imagine? We
What
do
if-
this like over Zoom.
What if we do that?
Who knows where we are?
Season
If we're all
9
still
will be
here, it's great.
216 episodes. If we stick with the whole 24 thing.
Wait,
Probably
what
got to
season?
bring that down a little bit.
What
maybe.
season?
I said
We'll
we
be
go
in
to 12.
season. I guess we'd be in season 4 or 5. No, we'd be in season 5 when we hit 100. Am I right in saying that? Would that be episode 2 of season 5?
Dude, I'm homeschooled. I can't do math. Come on now.
I don't really know. I don't have the brain power to.
Anyways,
Back to the show.
back to the regularly scheduled
Intermission.
program.
We're back.
Yeah.
We are back.
Take your bathroom break.
Yes, yes. Glad to have you back with us.
Okay,
We're
Ian,
still here.
Where are we going next?
Yeah, what else we got for me?
I've got a few different questions.
Hit me.
Since we're on we've kind of been on the subject of like people in their faith and struggling with that in their late teens, early 20s. What's something, this doesn't even have to be faith related or anything, just in general, that you wish you would have known in that time in life that would have helped you in some way, whether that's like life related, faith related, literally anything?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think that, I mean, it is amazing looking back now. It's been almost 20 years since that beginning of that journey. And I think that it just is amazing. You guys will know it more one day. That, and people said it, but it just, you can't know until you're there that this too shall pass. You know, this thing that feels like the biggest thing, my faith journey in that moment, or when I was nearly engaged and got broken up with, which is a true story.
Oh, wow.
And it just felt like the biggest thing in the world. And in some sense, not that it was insignificant then, because it wasn't. Sure. It was a big thing. But it'll pass. And it'll mark you. Like obviously I can talk about it. It's not like wiped away from my mind. That's not healthy either, to just like forget about it in an unhealthy way or like bury it somewhere. That's not good. That's emotionally unhealthy. But to also not live in it or be like, I wish in the moment, and I think I try and think about it now because I'm still on the younger end of my life, and there are big things that have happened to me this year or will happen in my life, to be like, yeah, this week is this heavy, and this year may be heavier. But whatever, at that time, my faith journey, it felt so heavy. Like it felt like, am I still a Christian? And am I in ministry? Like, what is the last 10 years? Was my coming to faith when I was a young kid, was that real? Like, was all this just... Like, is there really a God? Like, and I could have days where it just felt like I have to figure it out now. Like, I have to know now. I have to, I can't just function without answers. And I think to be able to say, you know what, that's enough for today. And next week, as Jesus talks about, there's enough trouble for today. Today has enough problems. One of my favorite parts of Sermon on the Mount. Like, just today has enough crud. That's Jesus.
Yeah.
He says that. He's not trying to pretend it doesn't. And so tomorrow's going to have enough of itself. So don't worry about tomorrow yet. But to look back now, that's one of the beauty. And Greg talks about this because he's about 16, 17 years older than me. And he talks a lot about like different parts of his own journey. And the older you get, hopefully one of the signs of maturity is you can look back and say, I made it through that. And it wasn't that big a deal. So there you go. I would say that. They're bigger things than what you're walking through in that moment.
That's good. That's something I definitely know I do not. Here goes the camera again.
No way.
LOL. I love that we've never had an issue with the camera up until this
Need
point.
to reboot it?
Can you reboot the camera? Is that a thing? I mean, I assume it is. But I don't know.
It's too hot in here.
I'm going to have to ask Steven about this.
Yeah, Steven.
That might mean we're going to start using a different camera. Sorry, YouTube. YouTube's going through right now.
Yeah, I heard it go off, and I was like, all right, it's time to...
We can actually use that, though.
Aidan,
low key.
I mean, you could just do like what a shift in the actual video part of the episode.
That'd be great.
Aidan, you do not have to film anymore. If it goes out again... I'm just gonna,
Aidan's phone just goes right back
straight
up.
Audio.
We have this cool.
We'll figure it out.
We're in good
We'll have this
it's
cool
fine.
little like
we got audio
side view.
Yeah, just video, and then guys, at some point, just go to the audio feed.
Yes,
because we broke the camera.
Yes,
we broke the camera.
Yeah,
it's all Steven's
there
fault.
You go. So
Steven, come on, man.
Unbelievable.
Dude, what are you doing?
Unbelievable,
what
guys.
What are you doing? Okay.
All right, carry on. Moving on. Next question.
My bad.
You're good. It's
actually
not your fault.
Kind of going back into that, I relate to what you were saying a lot because.
Great.
Kind of recently, I've had a lot of conversations with like Spencer and Ian and a couple other people of just like being anxious to figure out like where the Lord wants me right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know yet. And it's just kind of me having to be happy with like sitting in that and just keeping on and not being like, I have to know now. It's like a immediate shift in where I'm supposed to be. It's just me being like, okay, I'm just going to rest, trust the Lord and where I'm supposed to be, and just continue pursuing everything I'm pursuing.
Yes. It's so hard though. I mean, you guys know there are things I'm sure in your life that you'd want to have more clarity on right now.
For sure.
And there are things in my life I want that too. But God, when you read, again, going back to the Bible, Moses had these 40-year increments of his life. And among a lot of everyone else in the Bible, that there's so much time, and next week doesn't really seem to be a thing for God. It's more like a decade from now, maybe.
Yeah.
But there are obviously things God does every day in our life. But when it comes to what's God's will for my life, I'm always like, I don't know. I have no idea. Like, I think there are honestly a lot of things you could do with your life. There are a lot of ways you can serve in your life. There's just at some point saying yes to something, the things that God puts in front of you. Could you could I have gone to film or gone to political science? I think I could have, but, I didn't. And so I'm in ministry. And could I do something else down the road? Maybe. And I'm open to that. I love being in ministry, but sure. I'm not tied to it in a way that's like, I have to do this. And so, yeah, but it is. I can remember like from trying to should I date this girl to like, should I go to this college or should I move here? It's like, God, would you just, and sometimes I felt like there was genuine like movement in a certain direction.
Right.
But a lot of times I was like, I honestly am not sure. I'm just going to make this decision. And as long as I think I prayed about it and asked people about it, I still was not always super clear. But it was like, well, here's the person God put in front of me. Here's the place God put in front of me.
Right.
So maybe that's God saying that is it. Like or he hasn't done that. Yeah. And you're able to just kind of sometimes, like you said, I think just, you sit in it and be like, today I'm going to be faithful in just doing this, this, and this. And it's not that sexy and it's not that exciting and it doesn't have that much to it, honestly. But being faithful and just minding my business and not being worried about where I'm going is one of the more countercultural things I think you can do, and not broadcasting it, just having a simple life where you follow the Lord. And like that being enough, I am very much on that journey too. So I did not come from some other place to say this is how it is. I come from the place of, Lord, I want more of that in my life, of just a simplicity to my faith that's not always trying to look for breakthrough or the next big thing, but just like, Lord, I just want to love my kids and love my wife and be faithful in ministry. And that's enough. Like that's enough. And I'm very much a dreamer. I'm very much a vision guy. I'm very much though, like, what else? What next? Like, what other mountain? Like, is this it, Lord? Should I do something else? Like, do you want me to? I still very much feel that a lot. So I'm here to say it's a wrestling match for me. It's quiet contentedness in my spirit. Yeah. At the same time, not that becoming like laziness or apathy. Because that's not of the Lord. Like, healthy ambition is a good thing. Pressing in, taking hold of the land, that's a good thing. But not in your own power.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? It's a both.
For sure.
It's a both and type thing.
Yeah.
You don't want to go either side of that equation too much, if you can. So.
Yeah. What do you do when you get in those places of like, it's just a tough place to be mentally, hard things are going on in life, or like falling into that laziness? And what do you do to press through that and like, I guess, press into that and make it through that?
That's another great question. I don't always do well with it. I'm Enneagram 9. So a part of that is very much rhythms, and which can become very selfish sometimes. Self-care that can become very much selfish versus self-care that's self-giving. Those are two different things. And I can very much be like, hey, this is really, I'm saying it's for you, but it's for me. Like, I'm having this is just me. And that's never good. And, I would say when things and things always do, they get hard, they get challenging. Again, I'd come back to what I said earlier about the story. It is you've got to have cultivated some things in your faith along the way where you have places and anchors that you can go to and you can look at and be like, you cannot let your feelings, dictate how you feel. You can't let your emotion around this or that. Obviously, it's going to dictate sometimes how you feel because that's so present to you, but you can't let it drive everything. It cannot be, the governor on your life. And so that's a growth thing that happens as you grow. And it happens, I've grown, I think, a good amount, and it's still so much more to go where my circumstances can't be the greatest thing in my life. Like, God has walked me through some really hard things. Yeah. And I think in those moments, it's like, I have to go back to what story am I in? Who am I? What are the things I know are true about God? Even if right now it feels like I have a lot of questions about all of those things, but I also believe in things that I believed yesterday. I still believe in that. And whatever happened today doesn't change that. This suffering, this event, this thing, God not coming through for me in a way that I wish he did, that doesn't change who God is and how much he cares for me. And, I think, Ian, that's so important, to preach the gospel to yourself, to preach these things to yourself, and not just listen. I think Martin Luther, it's basically, I'm paraphrasing, he talks about, preaching to yourself and not just listening to yourself is so key. And because it's easy to just listen to how you're feeling and let that dictate how you're doing, but being like, that there are other things that are more true than how I'm feeling. And if I'm going to be able to be healthy and to flourish and to walk through this and not be overcome by my angst or my anxiety or my doubt, then I have to go back to some things that are deeper than how I'm feeling. And if you don't have any reservoir of that, if you've never done that, then you're not going to have any place to go. If your faith is not real and genuine, then when hard things come, then it will be exposed for not being real, right? Yeah. And I think God uses hard things in our life to make us go deeper.
Absolutely.
But if there's not been depth there ever, then you can't just make it up in a moment.
Right.
Like you've got to change the gears on the bike before you go up the hill.
Yeah.
If you change the gears on the bike halfway up the hill, you are dead. The bike breaks.
Yep.
And so I think sometimes it's like, okay, like when the hard things come, I'm going to just power up. And it's like, no, you won't. Like you'll break down. You will break down because the suffering that will happen in your life is greater than your ability to deal with it. You cannot deal with these things on your own. And with a shallow faith, it is not enough. I promise you that. Yeah. And so to have a faith that goes beneath, you guys know if you've ever been fishing, like you got to if you just put an anchor in the water, it's pointless.
Right.
Like you can feel like it's great. Or if the anchor just goes on the top of the sand.
Yeah.
You can feel like, oh, we're secure, but you've got to move the boat so the anchor gets secured. It hits on a rock or something. So it's got to go deeper. It has to catch something. So when a boat comes and you have all this wake, yeah, the boat rocks, but you don't move. Not really. And that comes through just the reps of being in the Word and being with older saints that can teach you things about God. And I am so much on still the baby steps of that journey. And so being in the Word and being underneath the Word is so key when you walk through mental and emotional things that are really hard, to be like, okay, what did I believe yesterday that is still true today about God?
That's so good.
And I'm just going to tell that to myself, even if honestly today I don't believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. The shifting the gears.
Yes. Great.
That stuck out to me.
Shift.
No, I was saying like you talking about the shifting the gears.
Oh, yeah.
With Grant, did the camera stop working again? That's amazing.
All right,
okay.
We'll keep going. I love it.
Yeah, but you can't just power up when something hard hits. It's got to be that established, like,
yeah, that's a good word for
faith.
It. Yes. You got to be there already.
Yeah, and that's really good. Definitely something I think I overlook at times, and I know a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And then the having older saints in your lives, having people that you can like go to and get the wisdom from and ask the hard questions and have those conversations. That's something I'm so thankful for. Yeah. Just like being here and then with some of my other friends that I know.
You have that.
And just having people like that in my life. But yeah, that's a really good analogy and way to like look at that. I love that.
Yeah.
Grant, I know you have a question that you wanted to ask, so we can do that whenever you're done getting that figured out. Okay, what is something we asked JC this? What is some advice that you would give to young men going into ministry?
I'd say the most, but two things is to know the Lord and to know your heart. I mean, beyond anything else, is to grow in your knowledge of who the Lord is, and always is key, like seeking first the kingdom, hungering and thirsting for righteousness. I mean, that is just keeping the fire hot. And just that expectation of hungering after the Lord. I mean, that's an act of resistance against just complacency that is normal faith, I think. And just saying, Lord, keep the fire hot. And I think going into ministry, so much of ministry becomes just freaking church work. And that is not good, you know? And so to say, Lord, there's a lot of stuff that just has to be done sometimes. That's the nature of the beast. We all know that.
Yeah.
But if that becomes all that it is, and you lose that hunger and thirsting for righteousness, then, you know, just shut it down. Shut it down. Game over. Because in ministry, you're leading out where other people are then going to be following. And that's what you're equipping the saints for the work of ministry. As Paul says, follow me as I follow Christ, like leading by example. And a lot of that is your faith. It is Christ in you. That is something that I think a huge part of discipleship is the Christ in you, that I want that Christ to be in me. So that whole idea, and it's a prayer that I ask people to pray for me all the time. It's like, hey, Sermon on the Mount, like seek first the kingdom of God, a hunger and thirst for righteousness. Would that be in vocational ministry? Just my desire is that, Lord. And the second thing that can be very much forgotten is the inner life and your heart and knowing yourself and knowing your past and how it shaped you and how your parents shape you. And you become angry sometimes, and it's like, well, I'm a sinner. It's like, that's not good enough. Why is that? Not everyone becomes angry like you do. Like there's something about you, about your makeup. And, Pete Scazzaro in his book, Emotional Spirituality, at least on the cover, there's the original copy. It had the iceberg where you have the very small part up top. And that's where a lot of the ministry work goes. It's like doctrinal work, or it's head knowledge, or it's best practices, or it's like how to grow a church. And that's where so many books are. Within the huge part of the iceberg is underneath the water. And that's your heart and your soul. And you guys know, like all of us psychologists talk about this. All of us have like an energy field that we walk into rooms with, that people experience us in a certain way before we even sometimes start talking. And like you guys have that, like your people around you know that, like, yeah, you're kind of this way, like whether they say it or not, right. Aidan or Ian, Grant, you guys just have a certain way that's like, and maybe it's not even able to be said out loud, but it's like, yeah, this is kind of how you are. And it's deeper than just the things that you say or things you like to do. And it can be a hard thing to come to terms with kind of that, because it takes courage to face it, which is why most people don't do it and just say, just let me be an expert on preaching, or I don't want to know that I am really trying to work out the approval I never got from my parents in ministry. I don't want to deal with that. That's not what that's not why I'm here. I'm here to help other people. I've buried my pain. It's like, good night. Okay. Then you're going to bleed out on everybody, because that's unhealthy. So that the soul work, the heart work of who you're becoming is the most important thing. That's what we talk about more and more in fellowship is discipleship is formation. It's made in the image of Christ, and becoming more like the person God has made you to be is not just in the things that you're doing, it's who you're becoming. And who you're becoming is everything, because that is who you become. And your greatest gift to each other, you guys, the rest of your life, is the greatest gift you give someone is Christ in you. But both those things are true. It's Christ and in you. There's a way in which Christ comes into Ian, into Grant, and into you, Aidan, that is different for each one of you. There's a different part of even Christ that comes out in you guys. And as you grow in your life and your faith, it's not just this vanilla kind of blanket. Like, oh, if Aidan walked in the room, it's the same as Grant did because it's the same Christ. It's like, well, we all know that's not true. It is the same Christ, but he dwells in you all differently. And as you grow in your faith, and in ministry, people want so many things from you. But the greatest gift you can give people is a healthy inner life that is deeply in love with Jesus, that is growing in health, which means you're probably walking through hard things you're learning about yourself. And you have people in your life that can tell you hard things about you. But there is like when you get a phone call from someone or a text from someone, there's something that happens in you. There's a reaction that happens just based on who this person is to you. And I want to be someone that's like, with not everybody, because that's unhealthy, but with people closest to me, it's like, hey, how do you experience me? And are there ways that I can grow in you experiencing me in healthier ways? Because that is going to be more beautiful, and that's going to be richer for Christ to come out in me if I'm actually, if I want the fruit of the Spirit to not just be a dream, but actually more real. It's like I want to become more loving and more kind and more joy-filled and more gentle. I want to be more like that. And that means that my inner life has to be the central part of growing my faith. And if it's not, then you could have a lot of great doctrine, and God can even have you have some giftings in ministry. But the greatest gift that you can give someone, which is Christ in you, you will not give them. And I think that's happened for a long time in ministry. Is it's just, you guys know, the gifts become highlighted, and because you can hide behind those things.
Mm-hmm.
But for someone to say, I know you and I love you, which is what Christ says to us, and I embrace you, is such a it's such a great thing. But it also means that you have to have the Holy Spirit give you the courage to look inside and to see things inside that's like, oh my gosh, I am this way. I reacted that way to this person I love because I am this way. Okay, so what does that mean? Where do I go with that?
Yeah.
And to go on that journey is a really hard journey, which is why very few people do it. And they become very stunted in their growth. And I just have kind of tried to covenant with myself to not be that person. And God has been faithful to expose a lot in that. He will answer that prayer. That's one He will answer. But I feel like I would hope people around me could say, yeah, RD is growing as a person. And that's the most important gift I give to my team, and I hope to our church.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Those two things, very
that's
not
really
succinctly, but very longly.
Yeah, for sure. Grant, do you want to?
Well, I had a question that me, Ian, and Aidan were bouncing around, but I have a different one now, so it's okay if I ask that one.
I love a pivot.
Well, my dad was talking to me yesterday. And shout out my dad.
Yes.
And
another goat himself.
I mean, you
Big Daddy Brent.
The man. The man.
Absolute
I want
goat.
him on the pod someday. I was talking to him about that this morning.
He's such a great dude.
He's going to come on the pod at some
We love
point.
you, Brent. Yeah, he's a great one.
Shout out, Dad.
Love that guy.
Love you, Dad.
Yeah. A man in full.
A man in full. So he was talking to me yesterday. He's like, you and RD would really click with film stuff.
Yes.
And I knew that. And I mean, we've talked about film. I know Aidan doesn't watch a lot of movies, so I don't want to have a full blown conversation.
Aidan,
but
who hurt you?
My dad and I have talked a lot about in the past of how Christian films, Christian films versus secular films, and how sometimes secular films can deliver a gospel message in some ways better than Christian films.
You mean in every way?
I mean, almost in every way, yes.
Sorry.
Yes. So
yes,
I'm of the opinion that if you're a Christian filmmaker making a film, you don't want to make a specific Christian film because you're going to reach you're not going to reach the audience that you need to reach if you make a secular film and teach gospel truths.
Yes.
So can you just speak to that just a little bit? Because
I can.
I feel like you're full of wisdom, and even though Aidan doesn't watch a lot of films,
okay, Aidan.
Even if you at home don't watch a lot of movies, this can still apply to anything you watch.
It can, or anything you even listen to,
read, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, the Christianization of movies has been such a sad thing, honestly. And this is where probably some of my hottest takes will come.
We love hot takes.
That's what we're here.
I think that
welcome to Off the Clock.
This, yes. I think the intention to just, dilute so much of the rawness of films that happens in Christian films. When you look at a lot of Christian films, there usually are some redemptive layers to them, but they operate almost in such a fantasy land where there's no because they're trying to appeal to a lot of, I think, Christians, they don't deal with heavy, real things. It keeps it kind of Pollyanna. It keeps it almost a little bit of like Pleasantville type stuff where everyone is kind of happy. It doesn't usually go that deep. It remains surface level, and it's like, hey, you just need to be a better guy, and you need to have a better family, and you need to just go to church more. Like it revolves around these kind of not superficial, but it doesn't get to like the nuance of life, to sin, to darkness. That's why I think like a film like The Joker has so many more themes that are so much deeper and richer than like Fireproof, right?
And you did an offstage episode.
We did do an offstage. Yeah, we want to do more like film reviews, and
I would love that. That'd be awesome.
If you throw me in the mix on that.
Oh, hey, we should get Grant in there offstage, a little film review, pick some for 2023. Well, I've been doing even just on 2022, looking at some of the best film lists this year, which have been great to read, like in the New York Times and the New York Magazine, New Yorker. So I would just say, very briefly, because you can ask to follow up maybe, is that are there some good Christian movies out there? Sure, they're fine, but they have a very specific point, which is usually a moral lesson. And I think when you moralize things, that's not what the Bible ever does. I mean, if you make a film about the Bible, really make a movie about it, it would be rated R. Right, it'd be like rated R big time. Yeah, it would be like if you make like you throw in every single thing that happens from like, beheadings to sex to family dynamics to incest to violence to is this actually a good guy or an awful guy? I'm not even sure from what the text says. To the life of Jesus, because that's life, and the Bible doesn't have simple answers. There is, in some level, of course, there's right and wrong. I'm not saying there's not, but there's so much more gray and nuance. And what Christian films sometimes do is dilute all that into a little lesson, a little parable. That is like, now here is your one little thought. And I think the Bible is so much more beautiful than that. And some of the best films don't nuance things in such a wonderful way that you're left being like, God, there's so many layers to that. And Christian films don't usually do that. It's like, oh, that's the lesson. Like whatever the little 3 or 4 sentence summary is of the Christian film, like that's actually the movie. Yeah. That's the whole thing. There is nothing else to it. You actually have you've watched the movie by seeing the descriptor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like a Hallmark Christmas movie, which I do love some of those because they're ridiculous and I hate them and I have to watch them because they're so insanely bad. But the descriptor, that is the film. Yes. There is no more. There's 100%. Nothing else that's going to surprise you.
Right.
But a great film, I think, really surprises you in its depth, its power, its moral complexity. Those are the great filmmakers. They do have a point. They want you to take away something. They do want that, but they're not obvious about it. And that is what makes a great film. Is you feel something. And you're left being like, what on earth was that? That was beautiful. Yeah. And that's what the Bible is. And Christian films, I think, dilute that in ways that rob so much of the beauty of that. And that's why I would say, have a light diet of those and a heavier diet of not every film, like you don't have to watch every Nick Cage film. That, just my gosh. Actually, that man's lost the plot.
No, if you are listening to Off the Clock, you can resume the podcast after you watch every Nick Cage movie.
Yeah. You can
stop right now.
Grant, do a Google search, because you may do a Google search of Nick Cage movies in the last couple of years. There's been like 19 of them, and you've probably not heard of many of them.
I watched Pig, so...
Well, Pig's actually the higher end of the films.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at films that are straight to like, not even Netflix, like straight to like video on demand release, and it is like with the Liam Neeson kind of effect, where it's like
Bruce,
dude, it's all the same movies now.
Yeah,
like you're just the paycheck.
Yeah,
what happened to you? Yep. Anyway, that's another tangent.
Wild.
Sorry, I'll stay.
Nick
focused.
Cage, if you're listening, wow, come on the podcast.
He is.
Yes,
he is.
Yeah, just honestly, like all the other famous people.
Out of any celebrity, out of any celebrity to listen to our podcast, Nick Cage might actually be one. Like,
you think he's the most likely?
I would not be surprised.
Honestly,
if Nick Cage
drastic was like, drop in his movies.
Honestly, you're not wrong. I mean, that man, Nick Cage, like he did make some good films though. Like Snake Eyes was great. So that's a great Brian De Palma film. He did like Lord of War. I mean, he did. There's some great complexity to his films, and then like a lot of actors just went a different way, and he's still making a lot of films, but you wouldn't even know about him because there's so many. And he's like a cop in New Orleans in every one of them. But it's a different movie. It's not a series.
That's wild.
I'm going to do a Google search on Nick Cage.
Anything else? I know, I can't remember this because I listened to it a bit ago, but just for my own, if you want to, fast forward, so be it. But give me one or two of your favorite films.
Oh, gosh. La La Land, I think.
This is a man right here.
Yeah, I know. I'm
one of my favorites.
I'm confident enough in my masculinity to say La La Land live on the internet.
La La Land is one of my favorites. Actually, it's in my top 10 now.
Really,
it's in my top 10.
It's my number one. That I love Princess Bride and Ferris Bueller. I always will love those. But
those are great movies.
For like another we're going straight film. Catch Me If You Can is a recent top notch one for me. I love so many more. So
I love this.
Yeah, we'll talk. We can have a conversation.
We actually should. We need to get lunch and actually longer have film time because I love film. Anyway, that's great. So go ahead.
So those are my. I'm gonna go with La La Land and Catch Me If You Can right now. But I feel like in both of those movies, like they aren't just straight like, oh yeah, this is like exactly what happens and happy ending and everything's perfect.
Yes.
Like. I mean, if you've seen, I'm not going to spoil the movies.
La La Land for sure.
But La La Land,
you can not either.
Yeah, not either. Like he was not a good person.
And that's a true story, but it's a heartbreaking film in some ways.
I mean, and the filmmaking behind both those movies,
but
just
still the
astounding.
redemptive qualities in that movie are like huge.
Yeah, huge. And
time.
I'd say same with La La Land that there's it's a good picture of what love, kind of like it's a cleaner picture intentionally, but it is like a good picture of like what actually happens with love. And so I think like the fact that there's nuance in both those films, that appeals to me. And
I tell you what, like I'm not afraid to spoil it. If you haven't seen it by now, just
fast forward to the next section on the YouTube thing or whatever.
Ryan Gosling's final look at Emma Stone in La La Land is one of the more powerful film moments I've ever seen.
I'd agree 100%.
Yeah. I mean, it is because all that's said in that look, like all that is said in just like the life that they did have, that they could have had, the hits that life brings, the pain, the suffering. He now has his own bar, and she's a famous actress, but like they had these memories, and I think there is this, and the whole Los Angeles kind of, La La Land, that idea in the film that's so powerful of dreamers and just this place that we go to make a name for ourselves. But at the end of the day, though, it's a film about just trying to find love and someone that accepts me and someone that believes in me and someone that supports me, and they did with each other. And there's such a beauty to that film, and there's some of the music is so wonderful, the cinematography is so great, but there's such a depth to that movie that even though it's a musical, it is so deep and beautiful, and it communicates things that if you're watching it in with intention, that it'll hit you in the heart as well. And that's a great film when it hits you in the heart and leaves you thinking those things.
And I think you can relate to it too. Like we've all had a La La Land moment in some aspect or some moment in that movie that we relate to. Or
so true.
Catch Me If You Can. Like there's stuff in there too that you can just relate to. And I think too with La La Land, it's just so well made. And I'd argue that it's so not a musical for the entirety of the movie.
No, it's not.
It's not. So anyway, I could go super deep on that.
Anyway, that's a whole
or any other movie
podcast off the movie clock.
Off the movie.
There needs to be like a special
off the movie
bonus
stage
episode that's
for
like
about
RD,
6 listeners.
Steven.
Steven, Dylan,
we should
I'm just gonna say,
I'm just kidding.
Greg.
You know what we should do is do that episode around Oscars time. And not maybe just about the Oscars for 2022,
but like around Oscar
just
season.
make it kind of somewhat connected where like maybe in March or late February, probably late February.
I want to do that so bad now.
We just do like an Oscars episode and just kind of have that be the bridge to maybe larger discussions about film. And just for the sake of doing it.
We just need to start a movie podcast.
Well, honestly, we really...
Can we start one with Fellowship? Like,
you know what? Yes, let's add... They're like, I don't quite get how that... But I love it. But
we're trying to inform the body about the
related to Christ,
like out there right now. Exactly.
To Christ, like it'll
all come back to the gospel.
It will.
We will totally relate 100%. To Christ,
and we can also nerd out about movies. Like this is perfect.
This is my dream. This is the start of something great.
I really hope so, guys. If there's another podcast here in 5 years when you're watching this, go check it out.
This is the beginning. It started here. It started with me and Grant and
Aidan
and Ian. Sorry,
maybe
Go
one
ahead.
day.
Who knows? One can dream.
Yeah.
What's your favorite movie, RD, of all time?
Oh, The Godfather.
Oh,
My dad and I were talking about The Godfather. I've only seen the first one.
Yeah,
but we were talking about that yesterday too.
And I haven't. Now that I'm married with kids, I am not able to carve out 3 hours to watch it in my life right now. So it's been because Emily, my wife, is like, I've never seen you watch that movie because I always answer that, and she's like, it can't be, and I'm like, it is. You would hate it, so I can't watch it with you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to start it at 8:30 at night. I'm too tired now. I'm not quite. I've got to. It's such a great film. It's so deep. You can't just put it on like at a random time and watch it while you're cooking. Like I'm not going to do that to that film. I will not do that to Francis Ford Coppola. I will not do that.
Who would you do it? Would you do it to Nick Cage?
Oh, yes, I would do it. I would do it in a heartbeat to Nick Cage.
Sorry, Nick Cage.
Well, he came back in there. Wow, that shot's fired. Sorry, Nick. So I love The Godfather. I love Shawshank.
Shawshank is.
That's a great film. I would say
tier.
La La Land.
So good.
Good Will Hunting.
Yes, Good Will Hunting is great. There's a couple. There's a great film called Avalon, which is by Barry Levinson. You should check this out sometime. It's about a family that comes to Baltimore in 1915, and it traces their family over the 20th century and the generations of their family, an immigrant family. And it is, I know for some of you, they're like, I would rather, watch paint dry.
Movie list.
But there are so many profound moments in that movie about just a family immigrating to the United States and making their name here, and the generational shifts both in America and in this family throughout the 20s. They go from like the 20s to the 90s with generations of this family, and the social changes in our country, and then how family changes from like with the invention of TV dinners, all these things. So that one, and then there's a film called Awakenings.
Oh,
Awakenings.
So I read it. I read the book, but I haven't actually seen the movie.
The movie, I think,
because I did psychology my senior year.
Marshall.
It has De Niro in it.
It has De Niro and Robin Williams. It is one of. I saw it like on TCM one day back in the day, and I happened to catch it when it started. And I honestly remember being like, and then I just was so entranced by the beginning, and I sat and watched the whole 2 hours of it. And that one, and then last thing I'll say, Alfred Hitchcock, Rear Window.
That's my favorite Hitchcock movie.
One of the greatest films of all time. It's one of the best thrillers.
That is so good.
And so I love old films as well, which is a whole other genre.
Talk
let's go around the horn really
quick
just because of, I don't know if this will release before Christmas or not. Doesn't matter.
It will. It's releasing
soon. So Christmas movie. What's a favorite or two for everybody? Just to inspire the people. And you have to answer this as well.
Precursor to our Christmas episode, which you can stream up there.
Well, I do have
at some point.
Yeah, somewhere. I want to ask RD one of the questions we're going to talk about on the Christmas episode real quick, too.
Oh, okay. Is it about that hard?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say my favorite Christmas movie is Christmas Vacation.
Oh,
I love that
Clark
movie.
Griswold.
That just makes sense with who you are.
That movie starts.
It really does, though. Like, yeah.
I love that film, though.
It's
so funny.
It's so good. Grant?
All right, good.
Oh, me? Gosh, Charlie Brown Christmas is always going to be my favorite, but I'm going to go for a live action one. Like White Christmas is also.
Oh, yes.
Dude. They don't make movies like White Christmas anymore.
They really don't. They really don't.
All right, I can hear the hate mail coming at me already. But it's because of the nostalgia of watching this movie every year with my family.
Yeah.
See,
Polar Express. Because I've watched it every year with my family.
The one with Tom Hanks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
See, but that's like, you can defend that. You can't defend the Outer Banks tank. that's different.
Oh, wow.
Hey.
Outer Banks Christmas.
We will talk about this on the next episode.
RD, is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Yes.
Praise God.
Yes, of course it is.
Okay, this is last question for you.
Yep.
What is one question for us? We do this like with all of our different
Our
guests.
question is, can you ask us a question?
What is one question you have for
And his
us?
answer could be yes.
And it
I'll
doesn't.
at the end.
Yes. Like all three of you answer the same question?
Yes.
Okay.
It can be anything at all.
Do people... Okay. Are you looking for lighter, for heavier, for...
That's
whatever you want to do.
It's completely up to you.
Steven did really light. He did movies. JC did like...
Pretty heavy.
JC did heavy,
deeper.
I'm sure he did.
Shout out JC.
He did not start crying, though.
No, I love that. JC's always going to go at the heart, which is why he's Also a goat.
The heart,
yes.
Yeah, it's the heart behind it, guys.
Yeah. My gosh. How about this is good. I like this. I will say how about I'll ask this question. Tell me two people that have deeply influenced your walk with Jesus and why they have. Usually I do, like Emily and I ask this question to people, we go like a Mount Rushmore. Who's in your Mount Rushmore, people that have influenced you? Yeah. But just for sake of time, and so you can expand a bit on each one, maybe just two. If you want to mention the third, that's fine. But just, and both can be people that are very close to you. One could be an author. One could be, but maybe two people that are like, man, when I think of the people that have shaped me deeply, they're on my Mount Rushmore.
Who wants to go first?
I can go first if y'all don't mind.
Go for it.
I mean, I'm going to leave out my parents just because they already are on the Mount Rushmore. They're the other two on the Mount Rushmore.
Absolutely.
Should we make that a...
We'll make that a rule.
That's
Parents are obviously... They're already there.
Yeah, when the list is expanded, you can talk about them.
Yes.
So this one, what else?
So you want to say family in general or just parents?
We'll go just... It's up to you. Your discretion.
Okay.
Yep.
I kind of paired these two together. So C.S. Lewis, I read C.S. Lewis in a class that I had with a man named Aaron Gentry. He was one of my teachers. He was one of my main teachers my senior year of high school. He taught apologetics. And so he really shaped my faith from an intellectual standpoint. My junior and senior year, that paired with C.S. Lewis, and he's a huge C.S. Lewis guy. It. So I paired those together. That's kind of, I'll group those as one.
That's great.
And then on the like emotional side, I hate saying Spencer Garland because y'all know him, but Spencer did teach me, especially my senior year, a lot about like a posture of worship and how to bring worship into everyday life. And he does a lot like leading by example. And he taught me a ton about leadership, and serving. So like right now where I am in life, besides my parents, obviously, those have been two people.
Man, that's great.
Or three-ish people who have really shaped my life intellectually and spiritually. And I'm still growing. There will be more people on the Mount Rushmore, but that's where I'm at. So,
man, that's great.
Yeah.
It's fun to do that. All right, who's next?
I got you.
All right.
Okay, so starting the common denominator off, I'm going to say Spencer.
Let's go Big Red.
I feel a theme coming here.
If you don't say it now, you're just lame. Like,
yeah.
There wasn't a chance.
I love it.
But man, just taught me so much about knowing how to go deeper, knowing how to want to go deeper. Like we actually had a really hard conversation last night of him just identifying some pride in me and some bitterness in me, and just really just pushing me to be like, hey, where's this coming from? Like starting to like working through a lot of things. And then it was the kind of conversation that like at the beginning of it, I was like, man, this is awful. But like through the end, I kind of started to see like what he was getting at. And then I was like, oh, this is why I'm feeling this. This is where I go after this. This is what like brought this on.
Wow.
And just like hard conversations like that all the time, that he like pushes me to go so much farther.
Love it.
And also just teaching me how to be a leader in worship and just leading people and all that stuff is huge. And then the other one I would say is Ian.
Ian didn't know he was going to be
I was not expecting that one.
Wow. This is why
I'm honored.
This is awesome.
Wow. Yeah, but
I love it.
A lot of the same stuff, just us like constantly being real with each other. Like, hey, I have doubts about this. Hey, I have questions about this. Hey, I don't know what I'm supposed to do in this situation. Like all that kind of stuff. And just us being vulnerable with each other and all that kind of stuff has been huge in my walk with the Lord. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, hot dog. Oh, cool. All right.
Ian, if you don't say me. I'm just kidding. I'm just totally kidding.
Oh, that's rich.
Dude. Yeah, so obviously besides my parents, and then I'm going to throw my grandmother in with that because she is just amazing. Yep. Amazing lady of faith.
No doubt.
Yeah, so leaving them as like their
no
own thing.
Category, yes.
Yeah, I think Spencer, since that is a common theme through all these.
I mean,
same
so
thing.
great.
Let's be real. He's the reason, that's sort of the reason we have a podcast, because he was the one. He was our boss when we were interns all together. So
true.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would say Spence for a lot of the same reasons Aidan and Grant were saying. Just like, no problem calling me out on things and like having the tough conversations, but also just like being there to give advice in life or worship, ministry, like whatever it is. I would say that's a big one. And then I'm thinking of like several people right now. I'm trying to decide. I'm gonna go with a couple right here, but kind of as one. I would say Zach Hume is a big one for me. His first year as an intern here was like my first year in middle school. So we went on a mission trip together that summer, and then I've known him ever since then. So that's a big one of just
yes, the man,
like mentor, friend, older brother, but pastor kind of role that has been instrumental. And then
love it.
Other one would be I have two other ones. Aidan. Yes. Yeah. Aidan would be one of those, like he was saying, just conversations and like calling each other out on things, but like being able to discuss like the different things we're walking through in ministry, like both being in kind of like similar seasons and situations right now. But also very different at the same time. So it's a big one. And then Seth. So love him.
Yay, Seth.
What a guy. He's been huge. Super inspirational. Great dude.
Maybe
Love
he'll be
him
on
to
the
death.
pod someday.
Someday we'll have to get him on.
Love
So
it.
I know that was definitely more than two. But
No, it's great.
yeah.
I love it. Love to hear it.
Well,
there you go.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
That's a great question.
episode.
What a rich.
Well, it's a
what
good
rich
question
talk.
to ask other people as well. You know, sometime.
Yeah.
So happy to be here. It was great, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Thanks,
RD.
RD.
Yep.
Sorry for the technical difficulties, guys, but thank you for being here.
Thank you. If you're
Thank you
still
so
here,
much. I'm gonna figure it out after this.
And
I'm going to Steven straight after this episode. So
we'll be working on a movie podcast about this episode.
At least a movie episode, maybe for February.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
All right.
that's gonna happen.
Definitely.
It's gonna happen.
Please.
Already
We need to
sweating his
get
2
Aidan.
cents.
We need to
I'd
get
love
Aidan
to.
a list of like a ton of movies to watch before then.
My homework.
Yeah,
at
you've got
least-
some homework to do.
Yes.
Oh man,
The Nick
All
Cage
right.
canon.
All right, guys.
Oh my
Peace.
Peace.
Thanks, y'all.
Guys, thank you so much for checking out our podcast. If you want to listen to more episodes or watch more episodes, go check out our YouTube and our Spotify and Apple Podcasts, etc. All that good stuff. Get to hear us talk about how Tobey Maguire is a bad actor. Lots of other movie discussions and a little bit of sports, and then some faith and life stuff. So yeah, appreciate you guys listening. Links are going to be up here. Go check them out.
Peace.